Hello guys, today I want to talk about my plans for Season 3 as they have drastically changed recently. Honestly, I was procrastinating this video quite heavily. I was gonna make a script for it, and today I just said fuck it, I'm gonna go in raw and talk to you like a human being. Now, what is this big announcement and why is it so important that it needs its own video? I am quitting the Ultimate Zero to Hero Challenge. Now, I know this will probably be disappointing to many people watching this because I think it's a large part of my identity at this point, and most people are probably only here because of this challenge, but the fact is, I simply don't enjoy it anymore. Now, there are multiple reasons for this, but the main one is that last season I did this side series called The Great Push, where I locked in a bit and started pushing hierarchies. It was essentially the first time that I tried to go from a 2.5k scrub to an above average player, and this series has really changed my view of myself as a player, and it completely changed my priorities in this game. Now, I'm not quitting it just because I want to focus on improving. There are multiple reasons. One of the biggest ones is that it's insanely time consuming. Not only do I have to gear 4 or 5 separate ults aside from all of my personal characters that I want to play, but more importantly learning the spec. Like, we're barely 1/4 into the challenge and some of these specs have an insanely high skill floor, and while we are already talking about skill floors, we're gonna be real with each other, okay? I don't think a single person watching these videos thinks that Keystone Hero is a difficult achievement by any means, or even a satisfying goal for that matter. Maybe it did hold some weight at some point, but realistically, I don't think it proves anything anymore. It is incredibly easily possible to get carried through these keys, and this is actually what happened to me last season with Fire Mage. You know, at first I tried to pour my time, my effort into the spec as I did with all of the other ones, but I was just so uninterested in the spec that I completely gave up on learning it and literally let my ass get carried while doing tank damage up to +11s. And I feel like it was at this point when the core principles of the challenge became completely worthless, because it just wasn't about learning or exploring anymore. The challenge just became one miserable chore. And honestly, even though I went into it knowing that there were gonna be many specs like that probably, I ended up finding out that maybe I'm a bit less of an alcoholic than I previously thought, and I don't enjoy as many specs as I say I enjoy. You know, I guess knowing wasn't enough for me. I had to experience some of them firsthand for myself to really understand how insufferable it would be to go through with it. And aside from, you know, actually playing the game, the challenge also takes a shit ton more time to edit, which I don't think I talk about much in these videos. Compared to The Great Push, for example, that series was a lot easier to edit. It gave me a lot more creative freedom, and it was probably the time where I enjoyed editing and actually making content the most out of this entire channel. And this is actually a thing that I'm quite disappointed about in retrospect. I feel like at the start of the season I really slacked on the challenge, which led to me having to catch up a bunch towards the end and also burn out from my personal push. And I really regret this a lot because although I have reached the goal that I was going for, right? I was 3,350 IO and also a top 1% elemental player, I still feel like I didn't apply myself enough. As a sort of toxic perfectionist IRL, it's kind of a gut-wrenching feeling, honestly, knowing that I could have done better in something that I'm passionate about but just didn't. I know for a fact that if I have dedicated just that little bit more time and effort and ended the season at, let's say, even 50 or 100 IO more, I would have felt so much more fulfilled than reaching what I consider to be an irrelevant achievement on 4 random specs that I simply don't give a fuck about. Okay, now that was the hard part of the video. That was the tough love that I had to give you. I apologize to the people that I have disappointed with this, but just before you say your goodbyes and unsub forever, let's talk about the goals for this season, right? That's what you were promised by the title. So obviously the main series will be replaced by the second season of The Great Push, where I will be staying on DPS, and this time around I'm gonna be setting a pretty hefty goal for myself. That goal is 3,600 rating, which equates to resilient +18s. Now, I know it might sound a bit scary initially, but I think with the extra time I'll have right now and the fact that I have timed a +17 last season, I think it's definitely doable. Now, there is a big catch though. Aside from trying to enjoy the game and content creation more, I also want this season to be a learning experience, not only for me, but also for you. I feel like in order to push myself and reach this milestone, I'll have to do some serious work. Not only in refining my spec, but also general player skills, because because when I look back at some of my gameplay, I have been slacking when it comes to the learning part of the game, and I have some seriously basic bad habits that need to be fixed. So basically, yeah, I'll have to sit down and read the guides and watch full key VODs this season. Absolutely tragic, isn't it? But that's a good thing, at least for you, because I'll be reporting all of my findings so that you have like a bit of a weekly documentary of my improvement, I guess. And who knows, maybe you'll learn a thing or two as well. Aside from this push, I will continue to alt a tank this season. You probably noticed that I'm not mentioning any specs so far. That is intentional. It's because next week I have another non-standard, pretty interesting video for you where I talk about all of the specs that I'll be alting that interest me, and more importantly why they interest me. So yeah, I'll also be tanking. I do want to challenge myself harder on tank as well though. Last season I tanked up to 3.1k, so I was thinking maybe 3.3k would be a solid goal for a role I don't main. The question remains though, will I continue to heal this season? My prediction ended up being correct, and healing is, at least in my opinion, okay, don't kill me, the shittiest role to play this season. Mostly because of the dungeon rotation, I feel like. And from the couple of low keys that I've healed so far, I have very low interest in it. But I kind of promised myself to triple roll. I think it teaches you a bunch about the game, so who am I kidding? I'll probably start healing eventually. When that happens though, it will almost definitely be a bit later on. For now, I'm just gonna focus on gearing and almost certainly not gonna heal anything above a plus 10 for the next couple of weeks or maybe even months. We'll see. Since we already kind of touched on the educational aspect, I would like to do more of that going forward. Last season, I kind of found out that I really enjoy teaching people stuff. I did help a couple of people get better at Ellie Shaman or improve their routing as a tank, and seeing them come back and show me the results, that made me really happy, honestly. So yeah, in the future, you can start expecting some occasional guides maybe. For example, I had this really good video idea actually. Last season, I noticed that a huge amount of people in the mid-level key range, so maybe like 13s to 15s, they are completely oblivious to damage profiles. No idea which specs do high prio, no idea which specs funnel, or what funnel even is for that matter, which specs lack single target, etc, etc. Basically, who they need to invite in order to synergize and start timing their keys. This is, in my opinion, single-handedly the most important skill that you need to learn when you want to transition into doing hierarchies. And I think there's kind of a lack of content that teaches you this sort of intermediate level stuff. So yeah, I went on a bit of a yap there, but that's the kind of stuff that I want to do eventually. But that's it, that's all that I want to do this season. Again, sorry if the news came as disappointment, but we gotta move, baby, we gotta evolve. Because if we don't, I'm just gonna continue producing soulless slop that I don't enjoy making. So in the comments, let me know what you think, but more importantly, what are your goals in Season 3? What do you want to achieve? Because I bet most of us have different goals, and I'm really interested to hear them. Also, if you do want to keep up with the tier list, then hop on my Discord. As I previously said, I'm only going to be making tier list videos when a very large patch comes out, but when small stuff drops, all of these weekly updates are going to be on the Discord along with the text explanations and also my underrated picks here. See you guys either on Twitch, I'm streaming in like a couple of hours after this video releases, or in the next video on Sunday where we talk about my alts and what specs I'm interested in for Season 3. So yeah, bye bye.